We have to come together, create our music, and eventually we're gonna have to like be about our message, which is taking over the government.
Courtney Everett Dewar Jr., aka Capital Steez, born July 7th, 1993, died December 24th, 2012.
Capital Steez.
Hip-hop is built on what-ifs. What if Big L had a major label push? What if Tupac and Biggie never got caught in the crossfire of their era? What if Capital Steez, the genius behind one of the most forward-thinking underground movements in modern rap, had lived long enough to see his vision unfold? His story isn't just one of potential. It's a story of mystery, loss, and an eerie sense that we may never truly understand what happened to him. By the time of his death at just 19 years old, Capital Steez had already left his mark as a pro-era leader, the Brooklyn-based collective that helped shape a new wave of hip-hop. Alongside Joey Badass, he was at the forefront of a rebirth, blending golden-era lyricism with the hunger of a new generation. But unlike Joey, Steez wasn't just a rapper. He was a prophet in his own right. He spoke about government conspiracies, hidden knowledge, and the spiritual power of the number 47, a number he believed held the key to the universe. His music reflected this obsession, laced with cryptic messages and layered meanings that even today feel like they were left behind for us to decode. But then, just as quickly as he was rising, he was gone. A leap from a Manhattan building and a final tweet reading "The End" and an abrupt conclusion to what could have been a career that changed the course of hip-hop. To this day, many still believe there was more to his death than what the official story tells us. Some think it was premeditated for months, a conclusion Steez had already arrived at, while others believe there were forces around him, seen and unseen, that played a role. Even in his last days, those close to him said he spoke as if he knew something the world didn't. What we do know is that Capital Steez was supposed to be a force. He was supposed to be in conversations alongside Kendrick, J. Cole, and Joey Badass as the torchbearers of lyricism in the 2010s. Instead, his story remains unfinished, a lingering shadow over pro-era and underground hip-hop as a whole. His death wasn't the only reason his growth was stunted. It was just a final chapter in a life that had already been battling forces beyond his control. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, StuntedGrowthMusic. Let's get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Jamal Dewar Jr., better known as Capital Steez, wasn't just another rapper. He was a visionary. Born in Brooklyn, he co-founded Pro-Era alongside Joey Badass, leading a movement that blended 90s lyricism with a new era's hunger. But Steez wasn't just making music. He was sending messages, lacing his verses with mysticism, conspiracies, and the significance of all numbers, not just 47, a symbol of universal power. His 2012 mixtape AmeriKKKan Korruption cemented him as one of the brightest young lyricists, but behind the genius, darkness crept in. Friends noticed his paranoia growing. He spoke of unseen forces, his place in the universe, and death as if he already knew his fate. Then on December 24th, 2012, he tweeted "The End" and was gone. His loss wasn't just tragic, it was a mystery, and for all his talent, something had already begun holding him back long before that final night. Stunt number 1, the mind that saw too much. Capital Steez wasn't just dealing with the pressures of being a rising artist, he was battling his own mind. His fascination with spirituality, conspiracy theories, and numerology wasn't just creative fuel, it became an all-consuming force. The number 47, which he believed symbolized connection between the physical and spiritual world, seemed to guide his every move. But the deeper he explored these ideas, the more detached he became from reality. Friends noticed a shift. He became increasingly paranoid, convinced that unseen forces were working against him. Some accounts suggest he believed the government was watching him and there were enemies beyond human control influencing his fate. He spoke about life and death as if they were predetermined, or as if he had already accepted an ending no one else could see coming. Mental health wasn't a widely discussed topic in hip-hop at the time, and whatever internal battles Steez was fighting, he was fighting alone. There were rumors that he had stopped eating and was fasting excessively, believing it would bring him closer to enlightenment. His spiritual journey wasn't bringing him peace, it was pushing him further away from those who could help. What makes his story even darker is the sense that he may have been trying to leave clues behind. His last words, his final tweets, even his verses, everything seemed to hint at a prophecy he believed in. But whether it was the weight of knowledge, the paranoia, or an undiagnosed mental illness, one thing is clear: his mind, which should have been his greatest gift, became his greatest burden. Had he gotten the right support, had hip-hop embraced mental health the way it does today, maybe Steez's story wouldn't be one of hip-hop's biggest what-ifs. Stunt number 2, fractures within Pro Era. Capital Steez was the heart of Pro Era, but even within the collective he outbuilt, cracks were forming. He and Joey Badass started off as equals, both seen as the future of hip-hop's lyrical resurgence. But as time went on, the industry made its decision. Joey was the star and Steez was left in the background. There were signs that Steez felt resentment. While Joey was securing major label interests and receiving mainstream attention, Steez, despite his talent, remained underground. His American Korruption mixtape was critically acclaimed, yet it never got the same industry push as Joey's 1999. Some believe Steez felt overlooked, not just by the industry, but by his own team. The collective he had co-founded was moving in a direction that may not have aligned with his vision, and as Joey's career soared, Steez's frustration grew. In interviews, Joey has spoken about how Steez was acting distant toward the end. The once tight-knit brotherhood wasn't the same. There were internal disagreements, and Steez's increasing paranoia made things worse. He reportedly began isolating himself, withdrawing from the group that had once been his family. Some say he felt betrayed, that he no longer saw a place for himself in the movement he started. The weight of watching someone else carry the torch he helped light may have been too much. Had things played out differently, had he found a way to reconcile his feelings within Pro Era, he could have remained a central figure, evolving alongside Joey instead of fading into the shadows. But instead of building his foundation, Steez drifted away, and by the time anyone realized how deep his struggles went, it was already too late. Stunt number 3, an industry that wasn't built for him. Capital Steez wasn't making music for the radio, the clubs, or even the charts. He was making music to shift minds. But the industry he was trying to break into wasn't built for artists like him. In 2012, hip-hop was in transition. Lyricism was making a comeback, but mainstream rap still leaned toward flashy beats, club anthems, and trap music. Steez, with his cryptic messages and anti-establishment mindset, didn't fit into the industry's formula for success. Unlike Joey Badass, who balanced raw lyricism with marketability, Steez didn't seem interested in playing the industry game. His mixtape American Korruption was filled with politically charged verses, deep spirituality, and critiques of the system. He wasn't trying to be a star, he was trying to be a messenger. But that type of artistry, especially coming from a 19-year-old with no major backing, wasn't easy to sell. Without industry support, his growth was limited. No major label came knocking, and no big cosigns pushed his name to the masses. Pro Era was gaining momentum, but Steez himself wasn't getting the individual shine he deserved. Some believe this lack of recognition frustrated him, that he felt his purpose was bigger than the audience he was reaching. Even if he had lived, there's no guarantee the industry would have embraced him. Hip-hop simply wasn't in a place where conspiracy-driven, hyper-lyrical rappers could thrive. The same ideas that made Steez unique also made him difficult to package. He was ahead of his time, and the industry wasn't ready for what he had to say. Had he stuck around, maybe he would have found his lane. Maybe today's climate, where independent artists have more power, would have allowed him to flourish. But in 2012, the doors he needed to walk through were locked. All in all, Capital Steez was never meant to be ordinary. His mind, his music, and his vision were all bigger than the space he was given. He saw things most people couldn't, but instead of guiding him forward, that vision seemed to consume him. Whether it was the weight of his own thoughts, the fractures within Pro Era, or an industry that had no place for an artist like him, his growth was cut short long before that final night. In another timeline, Steez would have been one of the most important voices in hip-hop today. His message and his influence would have evolved alongside Joey Badass, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole. He could have been a leader of a movement pushing hip-hop into deeper, more spiritual, and more revolutionary territory. Instead, his name is spoken in hushed tones, surrounded by mystery, conspiracy, and the sense that we lost something greater than we can fully understand. His death was tragic, but the real tragedy is what never got the chance to exist. Capital Steez should have been a legend, not a what if, but sometimes the brightest minds burn out before the world can get to see their full light. Salute, rest in peace to Capital Steez, your boy JC StuntedGrowthMusic, and I'm out.